All right, guys, what's going on? Welcome to a new Poker Life podcast. My name is Joey One, aka Chicago Joey, here on location, a new location every single podcast, it feels like. But today we're joined by a person who I met briefly when I was in Las Vegas at the World Series of Poker. Followed her on Twitter, had a little exchange, didn't think much of it. Couple weeks later, I see her and the podcast host himself, Lyman. Her and Lyman are engaging in a very spirited back and forth. There's a lot of vulgar terms being thrown around, a lot of this, a lot of that. I'm like, I don't know what are these two. These two are talking like Japanese. I'm trying to understand what they're talking about. I don't know what they're talking about. Then the whole sexism and poker debate heats up, and Cate wrote this article on PokerWomanNews.com. And it was such a greatly written article. There was a suggestion, have her on a podcast. I was like, that sounds like a good idea. I told her, please don't yell at me when I have her on. Please don't treat me like I'm Lyman because I don't want to be yelled at on my podcast. But we're having her on. She's here. She's live. Cate Hall. What's up, Cate?
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm glad I wrote the article so that everybody could see that I don't end every sentence with bitch, and I'm capable of having a debate. So I'm excited for the opportunity to not yell at you.
Yeah. So like when I met you, I was like, oh, she seems cool. Okay. And then, from Twitter, I was like, oh, she seems nice. And then I saw this. She's like, you're like, bitch, like, fuck you and all this stuff. I'm like, oh, like, what's happening? I was like, who? I was like, I was confused for a bit, but.
Yeah. No, I think that I mentioned to you, like, when I had that exchange with Lyman, I was on the tail end of a 24 to 30 hour grind session where I'd just been viciously attacked by man after man. And I got back to my room and I was posting something on Twitter and he interjected himself like, oh, women are actually treated really well at the poker table. I've never seen anything bad. And I was just like, all right, I'm going to take a stand now. And chose to engage with him in maybe not the most productive way, but it was very satisfying. So
it was fun. It was fun for you.
It was more fun than it should have been. I probably could have handled it in a more productive way and a more thoughtful way, but it was pretty satisfying.
All right, well, before we get into that, a lot of people out there that probably watch my podcast, they probably don't know much about you. They might not have read the article. In the article, I thought you did a great job writing it. You start off and you sort of, I think it's really good when you present your credentials or what your like where you come from, because a lot of people are going to start reading the article and be like, who is this person? And right. I thought it was cool. You graduated summa, how do you say summa cum laude? Is that what it's called, right?
I think so, yeah.
Does that mean you got second in your class in college?
No, it means like top, I think 1% or something like that. But I went to huge school.
What do you like doing school like 24 hours? How do you get the top 1%? How smart are you?
I went to University of Arizona, so big party school. But I also, worked hard, and that's about it.
I mean, I feel like even if you're smart, you still have to be an extremely hard worker because there's so much work you have to do, so many hours you have to put in to be able to get to that level of like an achievement seems pretty impressive. I guess would you say your work ethic is pretty strong still? I guess you'd say obviously it was strong back then. Would you say that you've been able to take that and carry that over into poker too?
I would say that yes, I value hard work very highly. I just made the transition to playing poker full time right before I met you, actually. So right before the World Series started, I left my job as a lawyer. I've been playing recreationally for like 2 years and was just really unhappy doing the law thing. And so decided that this was a way that I could do something else for a couple of years, figure out basically what I want to do with my life, and that there was not going to be a better time to do it. So I'm sort of free for the first time in 5 years after having been working a lawyer's schedule for that time period. So I think that the last month and a half, I've had like a little bit of a vacation mentality. And I'm finally starting to settle into actually studying and taking it seriously as I would a job. But it's a little bit hard once you don't have that routine and you don't have to get up and put on work clothes in the morning to take it as seriously as you do another job.
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest challenges when it comes to having success at poker and having a great deal of success is being able to keep yourself disciplined because you're your own boss. No one's saying like, hey, dude, fucking 9 a.m. tomorrow, get to work. It's you're telling yourself that. So I think that's really, it's not really talked about challenge either because it's just like, oh, poker, man, I get to do what the fuck I want to do. I wake up whenever I want. I do it, but that's a good thing and a bad thing because it does take a lot of work to get yourself sort of in the, in the productive zone, day after day after day.
Yeah. Yeah. So, it's a real challenge.
What'd you say?
It's a real challenge to stay focused on it.
Yeah, it definitely is. I know that. Yeah. I've been going through a little bit of that this year. But okay, so you skipped ahead. So you did say you went to law school. Where would you go to law school at?
I went to Yale.
You went to Yale. It seems like a challenging school to get into.
It was a challenging school. A little bit easier once you're already in. But yeah, I've sort of been in the work hard camp all of my life, for sure.
So, okay, so Yale, then you graduate, you start being you become a lawyer. Where were you working at doing law?
I was at a law firm in Washington, D.C., sort of like a smaller place, doing mostly appeals. So working on like Court of Appeals cases and Supreme Court cases for the last 5 years.
Huh. Live poker seems a little bit different than that industry, I gotta tell you.
Very different. Yeah, it's basically a complete break from what I was doing before, but I'm so happy with the transition. I think it's
wow.
Really good. I was not well suited temperamentally, I think, for law.
So how old are you now?
I'm 31.
31, okay. Because I mean, some people, you're like, sometimes you're not supposed to ask ages of women, but I think it's like very, I wasn't sure how old you were because obviously you look like when I met you, I thought you were like 22 or something. I was like,
right? Yeah.
Yeah. And then I read it, I was like, he was like, she went to law. I was like, I thought she was like 21, 22 years old when I saw her, when I met her.
No, I'm 7 years out of law school already. So I've been around for a while.
Yeah, so you've been working long enough, you got sick of it, and now I guess you say you found poker 2 years ago and you started playing?
Yeah, exactly. I sort of like knew how to play, but hadn't really taken it seriously at all until Maryland Live opened near DC, and I started basically going on weekends and learning how to actually play, and just having like a good outlet for live poker near me was it gave me a huge incentive to actually learn how to play the game, to take it seriously, which I hadn't done before.
So you're working at the law firm during the week. You're going to degenerate up at the casino, Maryland Live. Shout out to Maryland Live. Shout out to Christian Carter, Maryland Live representative, man, doing big things out there. Charter. Shout out to you. So you go there. You're degenning it up on the weekends. I call it degenning. Live poker to me, although before World Series, I always thought like if you're playing live poker you're just kind of a degenerate. But now I'm starting to come along. I've got a little bit of the live poker bug. I do quite enjoy live poker, and I can't say that about live poker much anymore. But so you go play live poker on the weekends and then work during the week. And how are you getting better at the game? Are you studying? Or you have friends? Like
Yeah. I mean, I'm studying. At the beginning, I was reading a lot. As I sort of got more involved in the community, I began to meet people, and I think that having friends who are better players than you is probably the single most important thing you can do to improve as a player. And that's actually one of the most challenging things about being a woman who plays poker is it can be awkward to try to set up those social networks that seem to come more easily to guys. So it just took me like a little bit more time to find people that I could, go over hand histories with and talk about range analysis with. But
talking about range analysis, boy, you guys hear that? Let's get into some. I'm ready to. I'm sorry. We actually don't. We don't usually use the word range.
Sorry.
No, but I like the word range. I'm going to start using the word range. I used to ban the word range from the podcast, but now I've had to change my heart, and I fucking love the word range, and I can't wait to use it all the time. Okay, so you said it's awkward sometimes to meet people in a live poker setting.
Mm-hmm.
Awkward in the sense of how?
I think that like men just sort of, they don't really have much of an incentive to become friends with a woman because it's more complicated almost always. Like even if there's no actual sexual tension, there's always the possibility of awkwardness, and it makes every interaction a little bit more fraught. You know, I've had male friends who I know, like their girlfriends would come in and meet me, and then they like would be a little bit awkward about it. And it just, you know, being one of the only women, I think you're just like, you stand out, and it makes it harder for you to become an ordinary part of social networks the way that men can.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, and like, it's, you have to deal with like trying to be friends with people and them hitting on you, honestly. Like that happens with some frequency. So you have to like figure out how to navigate those situations. Yeah, it's a lot more complicated basically for women to try to make friends in the poker world than it is for men, I think.
No, yeah, I'm sure. It's like, so like when you want to make friends with a dude, you're like, "What's up, bro?" And then you start talking to him. You want to like talk some hands, or you want to text, or you want to go play live. Like it's pretty easy. There's none of that like, "Hey, you want to like go out or go on a date?" Like you don't have to worry about that part happening. So
right. Yeah,
I think,
if somebody's like, "Do you want to go out to dinner?" I have to be like, "Is this like a date, or do they want to be poker friends with me?" Like it just adds a layer of complexity. It's been great finally getting to meet some women who play well and professionally, because there really weren't like a lot of models for that in the player pool that I was in. And in the last like few months, I've gotten to meet a lot of women like that. And it's just great to not have to worry at all about that level of interaction. It was one of the benefits of being out at the World Series of Poker for so long this summer, I think.
would you say that there's that sort of thing doesn't happen in your I guess the old job in the law office or
that
environment? It isn't quite the same way.
For sure. And you know, that could just be like, I think a large part of that is just demographics. There aren't a ton of young single men at a law office the way that there are in poker. I mean, that's like a huge portion of the people that I just meet playing poker. And part of it is just also standards of propriety. Like you're never going to be hit on by somebody you work with in a law office. And it happens all the time in more social environments.
That makes sense. I mean, you guys sometimes you watch the movies about the lawyers and they're like hooking up with everybody in the law office. So you sometimes get a misconception of what actually happens.
It's not really that exciting. People are way too hyper concerned about sexual harassment lawsuits to ever hit on people.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah, I mean, I guess, you know, I was going to say in poker, there obviously are a lot of single guys, but there are a lot of people in relationships too. So
yeah,
I guess it doesn't.
Yeah. Just like demographically, there are so many more men than women. And so even if like 1 out of every 5 men is single, they're still going to outnumber all of the women by like 4 to 1. Yeah. So it's just a numbers game, basically.
You know, I kind of want to find the equivalent. Like, what do men do where they're outnumbered by women? Like hairdresser, probably. What else could
I don't think. God, it's actually really hard to think of anything that's that gender imbalanced the other way.
I gotta do some more research. Maybe I'm gonna pick up. You know, I've always wanted to design hair. I think it'd be fun to go into the hair industry for like a year and just kind of see what it's like. Because I kind of
the servers at card rooms, like the waitresses, you see like one guy every once in a while.
Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah, I think that's pretty similar in the other direction.
No, I'm not quite sure what people are going to say if I start being a waiter at the Horseshoe Casino in Gary, Indiana. If I pick that job up, though, I guess I could do the male massage therapists that go around the tables and do massages.
Yes, that's another good example.
Yoga, yeah. You show off Daniel. That's a good point. Yoga is a good idea. Like a yoga teacher or yoga. All right, we're getting off topic here. But as you know, guys, we are live streaming this. Comments, questions, any ask away in the chat. I see we got a bunch of regulars here so far. Welcome to the stream. Thanks for tuning in. So let's get to the article you wrote, because this seems to be, I guess, people on 2+2 are talking about it, and I honestly don't even know what the debate is. It's like, are women treated, kind of like shit by some guys in poker at the poker table? I don't think you can argue. Are people arguing that doesn't happen, or what exactly is the debate happening right now?
I mean, so that's what's kind of mystifying to me is, like, there are debates you can have about this subject. You can debate whether women who play seriously are advantaged or disadvantaged by sexist attitudes. I think that's like a really hard question to answer. But like the question that I wanted to answer is the way that women are treated potentially discouraging additional women from coming to play poker and taking up the game? And I think that it's really hard to take the position that doesn't happen, because there are just, it may be the case like 80 or 90% of the people that you meet at the table are really nice guys and not problematic in any way. But there are still a lot of assholes. There are a lot of people who make women uncomfortable. And from like a public relations standpoint, or trying to explain the player pool, it seems like a huge problem to me. And I sort of just have a hard time understanding the people who don't see the issue at all. Especially when, I'm far from the only person who has pointed out this problem. There have been like dozens of women in the last few weeks who have sort of participated in this debate and said, yeah, that's kind of what my experience has been. I think that men are sexist. This is making me uncomfortable. And so to have like a dozen professional female poker players saying this is a problem, it kind of takes like huge balls to be like, I haven't seen it, so I don't think it's a problem. Like, it's just willful ignorance at that point. So it's mystifying to me too that there's a debate about this subject.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like it should be, I guess, especially, I don't know how a guy could say it's not happening when the women who are the fucking people we're talking about, or that you guys are talking about, they're saying it is. Like, if you say it is, you can't argue with that. Right. It's like, that's what I mean. I don't understand what the threat on 2+2 is. Like, they're getting intense about it. I'm just like, what the heck? It's like, obviously women are treated badly by some guys. So right. Basically, I guess the goal for everyone should be to, I think I posted this in my podcast group on Facebook, and the first comment was something like, it's not going to change. And I was like, well, I actually think that, it might not change right away, but so instead of not saying anything, it's better to say something, at least maybe have an impact on some people out there who might read this now and then say, oh, yeah, that makes sense. I never thought about that. Maybe I should stop doing this or stop doing that. Or if someone does that at the poker table with someone else, then I can speak up and say, hey, dude, or don't do that. Something like that might have. Yeah,
I think that it's weird to me how quick people are to jump to, it's never going to change, there's nothing we can do about it, because there's no reason to think that that's true. And there are lots of ways to go about addressing the problem, but they don't work if everybody's just like, oh, what can we do? Sex is going to be sexist, Yeah. I think that one thing I've noticed is I feel like the rate of change in attitudes in poker, I feel like poker is actually lagging behind most of the world in terms of the culture. And I think that the reason that might be is there's like a really unusual dynamic at a poker table where if you've got like some idiot with really bad critical reasoning skills who is saying racist or sexist stuff, like you have a financial incentive to keep that person at the table and not make them feel really uncomfortable. Like it's just sort of this weird fact that the people that you want to be playing against are the people who are not that smart. And so you don't want to antagonize them. You don't want to chase them away. And so there's always this delicate line that you walk when like a really shitty player, and it's more often than not shitty players, is saying something that is like not acceptable. How hard do you press them on that? And I think it's like that dynamic in poker where people have like a competing incentive not to say something that has led to sort of the overall culture in poker lagging behind, I think, most other activities and most of society.
So I guess what I guess what are you hoping to get out of this entire thing? Just raise awareness and start having a conversation about it? I mean, I guess what are you hoping, like what do you think best case scenario is for this topic or this debate getting started?
I think that the important thing that I'm hoping to like put in the front of people's minds is that their short-term interests are not necessarily the same as their long-term interests. So short-term, it might be awkward to say something at the table that's going to make a fish somewhat uncomfortable. And that,
a fish, you call them?
Fish, yeah, a fish.
We call them fun players around here. They're fun players. They're gonna fish. Fish is like fish is mean.
But like long-term interest is the player pool for poker is not really expanding at this point. There's a huge gender disparity, and there are potentially large numbers of women who could be interested in playing poker, but the environment might be discouraging them from doing so. So long-term, your interest is to make the poker table an environment where people like women and people of color are not made uncomfortable just by sitting there. So thinking about it in terms of there's more at stake than just like how much money I make in this one session, and actually the long-term viability of poker and livelihoods of people who play it, I think is an important point to make, and one that I haven't really heard made before.
I think it seems like a lot of people I've been talking to about, there's always the conversation always comes up whenever you talk to people more on the business side of things in poker. They always say, or there's a debate, how can we get more women in poker? And, obviously what you're discussing, treating women better and just raising the awareness, I think, would have an impact. But, I mean, poker is just like, it's sort of like a man's thing. I can see how most women, without even like, are just going to be intimidated right off the bat by that. It's all dudes. Like, it's not the most comfortable environment to walk into no matter what. And there's always going to be guys who are going to talk some shit or going to say some dumb shit or going to try to, they're going to do something dumb. It's just, you can't avoid it no matter what type of, unfortunately, that's just how things are. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I think that like perfection is not the thing that to strive for, but incremental improvements are really helpful and a thing to aspire to. Also, I think that poker is culturally definitely a man's game right now, but it's really possible to me that if you could just get over some threshold of number of women who are interested in playing, that they would get their friends interested and it would cease to be like an exclusively male thing. I sort of doubt that there will ever be perfect gender equality in poker, but it's crazy to me that there's basically a 20-to-1 ratio right now, because I don't think that reflects like underlying differences in women and men. I think that's basically just the culture that people have created.
Mm-hmm. I'm reading the comments sometimes as I'm listening to you talk, and Hassan said a man's thing, that's offensive. I gotta watch every fucking statement I say in this podcast because they're gonna have the people in the chat are gonna start going Lyman on me in here, and they're gonna start going crazy like that. I'm not saying it's a man's game. I'm not saying poker's a man's game. I'm saying if you look at a poker room, it's all men in the poker room. That's who plays the game. It's like saying American football is a man's game. Of course, it's a fucking man's game. That's the main number of people that are playing the game. That's just what it is right now. Do you think saying it's a man's thing or a man's game for poker right now is a bad comment or offensive comment?
I mean, I think if you're talking descriptively, it's like uncontroversial. Yeah, it's men. It's almost exclusively men who play poker. If like you're talking about, is there some fundamental difference in women that makes them incapable of playing poker? Yeah, then that's like a problematic comment. But I didn't understand your comment to be that.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not saying like, oh no, dude, no, only men can play poker. Like that's obviously not true. I think women can play poker extremely well. I know some women who.
Good job. Yeah.
I mean, I know some women who are awesome at poker. I know some women who work really hard. It's definitely not saying that. And I mean, obviously, I'm in the camp where, I'm trying to raise my. I only have 3% women watching the podcast. Obviously, I'm trying to raise that up to at least 5 to 10% at some point in time. So the more women that we get in poker, and also it kind of seems like there are more women in poker these days. Like, I mean, I guess it's only natural the player pool is going to grow and grow, but it certainly seems like I'm meeting a lot more women out there that are starting to play poker, whether it's semi-serious or very serious too.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have like the wealth of experience to know if that's the case. I feel like I've been meeting a lot of women, but I have like so little data that it's really not meaningful. I did see that the like overall attendance for women at the World Series of Poker has been basically unchanged for the last 10 years. I think it increased by 0.5%, which I was surprised by. But that might just be something to do with that particular tournament series. It might not be reflective of general trends. I don't know.
Now I'm starting. I want to think of some ideas where I personally can have an impact on trying to help get more women. I feel like it's just like, I guess what I always go back to is it's sort of like you need a big woman star in poker to have that sort of attraction. I don't think we've really had that yet happen. I mean, I guess Vanessa is popular to some extent, but I don't think she quite has the mainstream exposure like an Antonio or Daniel. And obviously it's really hard to get to that level anyway, but I feel like that's what is going to happen at some point in time. And once that happens, that's when you'll see the player pool sort of start to grow.
I was really rooting for Kelly Minkin to make the November 9 this year because I feel like that would be a sort of key accomplishment for women and sort of broadening female interest in the sport, as if there was a woman in the November 9 playing on ESPN and all of the media hype that surrounds that. I think it would have been really great.
Yeah, I wonder if there are more women that play in Europe because I feel like there's more poker on TV in Europe as compared to the United States. So I'd wonder if the number of European women players is higher than the American. Because like, if you're an American woman, like, how are you getting your poker exposure? You get the main event, and I mean, I guess Poker Night in America it's on NBC Sports Network, so it's probably going to be hard if you're a woman to just sort of find that. There's no Poker After Dark anymore. WPT. Actually, WPT seems like WPT is on every single time I turn on my television. So
yeah,
you could definitely get some. Yeah, I guess that's probably the way that most women are finding poker now on TV.
And I think that there's also more women in Europe because the percentages are slightly higher for online poker. At least I've heard that. And so, given the status of legality in the U.S., it may be that the total number of women is a little bit higher in Europe.
Do you play online poker at all yourself?
Not really. Occasionally I do. Yeah, it's just kind of cumbersome. I really enjoy live poker. I think that it's something that I might do more of in the future. It's especially a good way to get like a lot of practice in. Obviously much, much faster than live. So it's probably something I should be doing more of. But I'm just sort of in love with live poker right now.
What do you love about live poker? Like, what is it about live poker that makes you not want to play online at all? I guess. So I guess online also, obviously, you said it's a very sort of gray area, legally speaking.
Right. There are a lot of fun players live. Let's put it that way. The player pool is quite different, I think, for people who play live in the US versus people who are willing to seek out ways to play online in the US.
I would definitely agree with that. Do you play any of the great game of Pot in Omaha?
No, I don't. I'm gonna say no, I don't. I'm starting to learn because I know it's the wave of the future, but
No. It's not only the wave of the future. You get 4 cards. I mean, can you imagine that?
4
cards? Okay, 4 cards. No, okay. The possibilities are endless. The fun players just want to gamble. I'm getting excited. Oh, I'm getting pumped up thinking about PLO right now.
You got 4 cards. I would have been playing it for years. Yeah.
Oh my god. It's. Sorry. Okay, so you don't play any PLO, right? But you got plans to play PLO in the future, right?
Yeah, I do. There's like great PLO games at Maryland Live. Yep.
Okay, but for now, you focus on playing No Limit. What's your main game you play now?
I play mostly 5-10 and 10-25.
5-10 and 10-25 here. Okay, so 5-10, 10-25. What did you start playing? Like how long did it take you to get up to that point? 'Cause you just said you just quit your job and played professionally. So how did it go where you became 10-25?
I played, I started at the bottom. I played probably 6 months of 1-2, 6 to 8 months of 2-5, and like established a win rate that I was happy with, and made sure that I knew what I was doing enough to try to move up levels. Started playing 5-10 probably a little less than a year ago, and gradually became a better player during that time. As is like often the case, when I first moved up to 5-10, I ran like God for like 2 months and thought I was just amazing at poker. That turned out to be false, but I've learned a lot in the time since, and am continuing to do that. And I would say that I started playing 10-25 somewhat regularly about 3 months ago, and that's most of what I was playing when I was out in Vegas for the summer. But the 10, 20, and 10 1/4 games in Vegas are particularly good games. So I think I'll be playing like a mix of 5-10 and 10-25 now that I'm back on my regular grind.
So your regular grind, you still live in Washington, D.C. then?
Yeah.
So you're there most of the year, and then you travel you said, so you're by the Foxwoods event? Right?
Exactly. I'm here. I'm playing in the Foxwood series right now. Because I was a lawyer until basically 2 months ago, I've never really tried tournament poker because it's so time consuming and the travel is such a burden. I think that I'm giving it a shot now just to see what it's like. I think probably from a financial perspective, it doesn't make sense to focus on tournaments, honestly. But it's really fun and it's something different. So I'm giving myself a little bit of time with it before I call it quits, basically.
Fucking tournaments. Good old tournament poker, man. Tournament poker.
I basically was very, very negative on tournaments before I started playing them. And I was just like, that's not real poker, 30 big blinds, like there's no skill involved. And I'm coming to see that there are a range of skills that are involved in tournament poker that are very different from cash games. And so it's kind of fun to learn those. I think that my long-term preference is going to be like deep stacked cash poker because it's just so fun and then like endless levels of strategy. But there's always fun in trying something new. So I'm giving
the way you speak about deep stack cash, you must be up a lot of money because there's no one that talks this way unless they're winning a lot of money.
I'm doing fine. Let's put it that way.
I'm serious. I know maybe 8 to 10 people who talk this way about deep stack PLO specifically, and these are the biggest crushers I know. Like, there's no one that's breaking even or losing. That's like, I fucking, I guess the big fun players say that too. They're like, I like playing deep because they forget they lose.
I love it. I mean, it's just you have so much more room to be creative and think strategically when you're like 200 plus big blinds deep. Like, I don't really even enjoy playing 100 big blind poker, which is another reason why I'm not well suited for online poker. Is you sort of don't find like 300 big blind games in online poker. Yeah, but I'm just totally in love with huge live cash games, basically.
Do you play anything higher than 1025? Do you ever get, because I mean, you can always, I think once you start to become a regular and you have friends, you're known to be a good player, you have success, you can always sell action for pretty much anything at any point in time.
I'll like, on a few occasions I've sat in 2550 games. I don't really play much bigger than that because from a bankroll management perspective, I would have to sell too much action. Though, like, if there were a great game, I would absolutely sit in it and try to sell a bunch of action just for the experience of being in the game and for a profit opportunity, even if I have a smaller piece. But yeah, a few times I've played like 2550 and 5100.
So are you like in the camp where you prefer to play on all your own action when you do play? Because I know there's some people, like when I came up with Cash Game World, I was like, I'm gonna move up once I can do it myself. Like, I never like really got staked. I never was into that sort of thing as I was moving up the stakes. But I know some people, like, they prefer to be that way. I've always been in the camp. I don't know. I've always been, that's not the way I sort of did things.
Yeah, unless it's like a really, really great game that you just can't pass up. I would always prefer to be in a smaller game where I have 100% of my own action than to be in a bigger game where I'm selling action. I feel, I don't think it's really a matter of like feeling invested. I think I feel equally invested either way. But there's just something about selling action that makes me feel like a little bit less comfortable. I think I really hate the idea of losing somebody else's money, which, like, I worry about that affecting my gameplay a little bit. It's also like there are unique issues being a woman and selling action. Like, I hesitate to do it, I think, more than a man would, because women are really aggressively criticized for being staked by men. It's like a frequent criticism that I heard levied against female poker players. Like, oh yeah, she's playing whatever game, but she's getting staked by this dude who wants to bang her. And so, like, honestly, so I'm very careful about who I sell action to, so there's never a possibility of anything like that. Everything is just like a tiny bit more complicated, I think, when you're a woman playing these games. But of course, you have opportunities that men don't have, honestly.
Wait, what was that statement again?
You have opportunities that men don't have as a woman in the game. Like, once you've made it like, I'm not an amazing poker player, but there are not that many women who play 510, 1025 and higher. And I can get seats in games that men can't because I'm the only woman who's like trying to get that opportunity. And that's like separate from staking, but there are opportunities that come along with being a woman once you've gotten to that level and like persisted with it long enough to achieve competency. It's obviously an advantage to be a woman.
So I'm assuming you probably feel like you exploit being a woman at the poker table pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I think that once you get to a certain level, there's like fewer and fewer opportunities for outright exploitation,
Right.
because there aren't that many men who are like, it's not the 10-25 grinders who have like delusions about women not being able to play. But there are like, the more you move down in stakes, the more common it is for men to not be able to play effectively against women. It's the case all the time at 5'10", I would say. Like there will always be one or two men at the table who just play stupidly against women, because they have these biases, they have these ideas about how women play, and it takes them an absurd amount of data to the contrary to like shake up their preconceptions. So even if you know, there will be like the guy who thinks that women play super tight, and even if you like three bet him every hand for a dozen sessions, he'll just be like, wow, it's weird that you've had aces all those times. Like some men just they can't be shaken from their preconceptions, and those men are incredibly profitable to play against.
Yeah, I would think. I was thinking about this as I was playing live poker in Vegas. I put in a bunch of sessions there because I just wanted to get, see what it was like, and I love live PLO. I know, yeah, live PLO plays really deep too. It is quite fun because there's people playing deep that should never you should never have 500 big blinds in front of you, buddy. Like what?
Yeah.
It's just. And man, I mean, sure, you're not playing for like stacks. You might never play for stacks with a guy, but just the potential to play for stacks with these really bad players is just such a good spot to be in.
The Vegas games were amazing because they're so deep stacked. 10-25 where I play is uncapped, but 5-10 is capped at 2,000. And I think the norm for 5-10 games in Vegas, other than like Bellagio, was I was playing mostly like 5K max or uncapped. And when you have a 5-10 game that's that deep, people are making like really expensive mistakes all the time, and it's just amazing.
Well, what do you think some of those mistakes are? That, I mean, I guess this could also be a strategic lesson for someone out there if they're listening, but I would imagine most of those guys aren't listening right now. So
I mean, I think that there are a surprising number of people at that level who have a poor grasp of relative hand strength. And so there are hands that they just can't fold, no matter how good the evidence is that they're behind. Yeah, that's like a huge part of it. Also, people don't adjust their ranges. I know it's a forbidden word, but people don't adjust their ranges.
Range is now allowed. As of my last podcast, it's range. The word range is allowed in the podcast.
Okay. They don't adjust them for stacks. And like one thing that I kept seeing, for instance, was, it would be like 500 big blinds deep, and people would fold very consistently to 3 bets out of the blinds. And like, other than sort of mediocre Broadway hands, if I'm 500 big blinds deep, I'm calling like 100% of the time in position. Like, I think
you love PLO. Cate, I'm telling you, you got to come to this game PLO. It's a great. You never got to fall for 3 bets either. It's perfectly. It's accept. You'd love it. But continue on. I'm sorry. You love PLO. Oh, it's such a magical game. Okay, so you never got to hold a 3 bet in position then.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that it makes sense to fold if you're like 100 to 200 big blinds deep in position, that it doesn't make sense to fold when you're super deep. And so people also like completely end up owning themselves by going for huge value in places where they shouldn't. I mean, that's like an extension of the failure to recognize relative hand strength. Like, people 3-betting and then following up with 3 streets with a single pair for value, and like getting 250 or 300 big blinds in the pot. That's just kind of crazy. And you literally cannot make a mistake that big if you're 150 big blinds deep.
Not sure how to comment on that comment right there, guys. I'm thinking because I'm just thinking about it, you know, because that's a very, very great point. I think that's a very great point. There's a have you read the article on 2+? Do you go on 2+2 at all, by the way, Cate?
Not really. Like every once in a while, I'll be directed to something and I'll look onto it, but I'm not like a regular reader.
Hold on, I gotta regulate the cat. Hold on, guys. Kim Jong Joey, the dictator of my chat, needs to come out. This Hassan, man, you need to calm the fuck down in the chat, man. You're being weird today, bro. Calm down, man. I already gave one guy a ban who compared me to Meek Mill, so that's not gonna fly in the chat. No one's comparing me to Meek Mill in the chat. You're never allowed in the chat again. You have to make a new name, try again, come back later. Keeping this positive. We're keeping this a happy environment, guys. You want to say some things like comparing me to Meek Mill in the chat? You go to Twitch. You get in Twitch, man. Talk about that. But all right, so it sounds like you know, where do you think your biggest edge is in these live games when you play? So deep, yes, but I guess from that point on, do you think there's one thing specifically that you do really well that other players?
I think that's too specific a question for me to answer.
Okay, good. That was a good answer, man. I just want to see what we can get out of people here with this new strategy talk.
No, I'm happy to talk about like games that I won't be playing in again for a year, but not like my regular game. Like, can you just give us a quick list of the players that you target?
Is there any? I'm trying to think because I'm trying to compare because like when I play PLO live, I guess it's No Limit Live just seems I guess so much different because in PLO live there are so many like 6 way to the flop and there are 3 bets and 4 callers. I played some of the No Limit 5-10 games and I played some of the No Limit 2-5 games at Aria because I just wanted to see what No Limit was like, and it's so boring. It's like full. And then when there's a fun player at the table, he's sort of driving the action. But it seems like the games are for the most part just really boring overall. There's people on iPads. There's like 6 dudes on iPads with the Beats headphones on, and like what is it? I don't know. What's your strategy at the table when you're playing? Are you a talker? Are you a quiet person? Like, do you try to liven the game up? What's sort of your approach in that situation?
I mean, yeah, it's tough to do anything when it's like 7 grinders who are just looking at their iPads. And also, honestly, who cares about inducing action from those people? I think that, yeah, I mean, just like talking to people, being friendly, getting them to talk about things other than poker. Rounds of straddles are always a fan favorite. Yeah, just like being friendly and trying to be a human and not staring at your phone all the time seems to be a good strategy.
Yeah, I think a good approach that I sort of started doing was just talking to everyone. So the guys on iPads, I would try to talk to those guys the most because like it'd be funny. Like I call it nits. I if you're a nit, I'm gonna tell you you're a nit. Like I'm trying to get these nits rattled. I'm trying to get the nits out of the nit zone. And that was something I just constantly kept doing. And you'd see the nits just start being, eventually they do something dumb and they lose a bunch of money, and then they're like, oh man, that's what they wanted me to do. And I noticed that worked really well. I guess that's probably not something most people do.
Yeah, but I think it's like probably pretty effective. People don't like being directly challenged at the poker table. They tend to react suboptimally to it from their perspective, not from yours. So if you can handle the fallout that comes from being the guy who's always like agitating people at the table, I think it's probably a pretty good strategy.
I guess I wouldn't say I agitate. I talk with the people who are actually. Yeah, with the good players, I try to be friendly with them because I could be friends with them. Like they seem like they're a similar type of player like me. They like action. They're not total nits. The nits, I'm just like, dude, I'll think of nicknames for them like Nancy the Nit, and there's just like Randy the Rock. There's Tight Tony. I mean, there's a lot of these nicknames you give to the tight players at the table, and obviously the fun players. I'm talking to them. I'm getting we get around to drinks, get some coronas, get some margaritas, get some quesadillas or something like that. So absolutely,
yeah. Anything to make the table a more fun place to be. I support.
Yeah, I guess these are so I guess once you get to the 10-25 level, if you're playing 10-25 regularly at Maryland Live, it's probably a lot of the same players in those games, right?
I would say that it's like only about 70% regulars. And there are usually a couple of people who are fun players in most of the games. So it's a little bit less reggy and unfun than you would think it is. It's still, poker is still relatively new to that area, which I think has something to do with it. There are still people who want to gamble for big money.
Yeah. Danny in the chat. Puppy, what's up, Danny? He says Foldy Locks. I kind of like that name, Danny. I'm gonna take that. Hassan says Saint Nicholas. I guess that would work too. That could be a good nickname as well. Who do we got in the chat? I gotta get some shout outs, Cate. I've gone a long time. I haven't gave shout outs. I'm getting angsty.
Yeah.
Just gotta get some shout outs. So we got in the chat. We got a bunch of Puppy. Show of force. What's up, Puppy? Hassan, obviously Hassan. You know, Hassan, you on one today, Puppy. You must be. I don't know what you have to do. Ross, what's up, Ross? Tap, what's up, Tap? He says, I would use the lip bite, big eyes, and sometimes the barely covering my chest one. Okay.
I'm picturing like a huge dude doing that.
A huge, yeah. I mean, okay. So I said something earlier. Hold on, let me finish my shouts. Tim F, what's up, Tim Puppy? Oaksterdam, I ain't seen you in a long time. What's up, buddy? Welcome to the chat. Daniele, hola, cola, mosa, Puppy. What's up, man? I might be going to Italy, Daniele, and I might be going to Italy from Germany. We'll see what happens. I'll let you know. Nicholas, what's up, Nicholas? Puppy. All right, we'll get back to shots later. I can't spend too much time on shots today. All right, so no, what I was getting back to is that I feel like if you're a woman who knows how to play poker and also knows how to take advantage of your image at the poker table, there are a lot of these players that you would just destroy because they're like showing you cards and they're not betting for value against you. They're like, oh, check. This is what I'm watching playing. Like you guys are like, I'm gonna check back top set here, like middle set. I'm like, what the fuck is happening here? Like I want to be a woman at the table because it just in the games I was playing, it seems like there are guys that are just soft playing so much.
You don't see it as much like once you get to 5-10 and above. That happens constantly at 2-5 and lower, I think. I mean, constantly might be a little bit of an exaggeration, but there are definitely men who soft play you. And there, on the other end of the spectrum, there are men who are really unhappy about having women at the table and will go after you super aggressively. And as long as you know how to respond to both types of people, it's really profitable.
What kind of player at the table do you think I am if there is a woman playing at the table?
Probably pretty similar to normal. I would imagine that you're able to play against a woman, but I haven't actually played with you, so I don't know. You might be completely awful at it.
I try to reverse it. So like it's like if you sometimes think that you might be nice to them, then you just start punishing them with aggression. Like so, I try to find the women that are aware of what's happening and then use it against them. So.
Okay, yeah, that's a good strategy in general for poker. So makes sense.
No, I usually if they're at PLO, I'm gonna three bet women just so I understand because like I guess the stereotype going in. Do you think the stereotype that you go into a poker table and sometimes you assume women are going to be tighter is a bad stereotype, a general assumption to have going into a session as a man?
I think no. I mean, I think as long as you're able to take new evidence into account when it doesn't actually line up with what your expectations are, then it's totally reasonable to rely on stereotypes. And it's probably the case that women overall are tighter players than men are. The only time it gets costly is if you have somebody like me at the table who's going to 3-bet you constantly until you adjust, and you never do because you have this idea in your head that women are tight players and I must somehow have queens plus every single hand. Yeah, so as long as you're able to like adjust to new information, I think it's fine. Everybody relies on stereotypes.
Yeah, I think I guess it's like just like if you see an old guy, you assume he's nitty and tight, and probably you shouldn't be losing money to him. If you see a European guy, you assume he's psychotic until you have other reasons to believe otherwise.
Right.
When you see a young guy, you usually assume he knows what he's doing. I guess yeah, those are probably the stereotypes. I mean, but if a woman 3-bets you at the table, like I'm then you're obviously understand. I mean, most women, like, I didn't see any women that played a sort of aggressive style like that. I played with maybe 15 to 20 different women in Vegas. I didn't see any woman with that sort of style out there. So I think if you see something like that happen, you probably would. Obviously, like if you're an aware person, you'd be like, oh, okay, she has a good idea what she's doing.
Yeah, it just takes people longer than you would imagine. But I mean, on average, there are obviously people who are totally thinking clearly and can pick up on what you're doing immediately, and those are the really good players. Actually, in tournaments where, you know, in cash games, you're playing with a lot of the same people over and over again. You have much less of a repeat player effect in tournaments. And I just like totally think it's profitable for women to play into men's stereotypes about how women play in tournaments for that reason. And so like when I'm in a tournament, I don't waste anybody's time and I don't feign incompetence outright, but like you will never see me shuffling my chips. I'm very like deliberate about the way that I put chips in the pot so that you would never see me and think this person is a poker player. And you can play so aggressively so long as you act like you don't know how to handle your chips. Like it just does not register for people that you're playing aggressively. And that can be really profitable in tournaments where people just don't get enough data to adjust.
Do you think this works for men too? Can men do this? Can I go not shuffle my chips and wear like a Bud Light t-shirt and like a World Series of Poker hat or something like that? And
I mean, I think you have to sort of carefully study the mannerisms of people who don't know what they're doing. But like, I mean, when you sit down at a poker table, you can immediately tell who's a real player and who isn't by their bearing, the way that they handle their cards, the way they handle their chips, the way they throw their cards into the muck. Like every little gesture conveys what you know about the game and how familiar you are with it. And people rely on it so intuitively and so unthinkingly that it's like a great way to manipulate people. This is like me giving away way too much information. But if you're willing to sort of swallow your pride and look like an idiot and live with people thinking that you're not a good poker player, you can put yourself in really good positions by doing that.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. I actually, I think sometimes it's not bad. It's not a bad thing to be thought about as a good player. It's not like I think it could work in your advantage to be sort of viewed as one of the better players, because in that situation, I feel like the other good players at the table might be hesitant to sort of go after you. You're already going to have sometimes the fun players, they're just sort of nervous about you once you come out firing, like they're like, and they start going back. And then obviously it's on you to adjust to them at that point in time and realize, all right, like now they think about this about me. Well, now I can, figure out how to take advantage of that myself. So, I thought about that. I was like, I kind of like just being, debatably perceived as someone who knows what they're doing or a good player at the table.
Fun. I think that it's just one of those things like, whenever I go to a new table, I spend the first couple of orbits sizing up what overall strategy is going to be best for the table. And I tend not to do anything that will give me away as a real player during that time, so that if I decide that acting like I'm kind of dumb is going to be the most profitable thing to do, I haven't done anything to betray that. It's still an option. And then you can always, like, if you decide that being a good player or acting like you know what you're doing is going to be better for you at that particular table, then you can easily revert to that. But you can't go the opposite direction. So you have to like willingly make an effort to preserve that option.
So I guess with poker now, what are your goals with poker? Like, do you hope to, being well known, is that something that you'd like to be? I mean, do you want to have some sort of platform potentially? Because it seems like I feel like you could add a lot of value to the poker world, to be honest. So, I mean, I guess, is that even something that you're thinking about doing, or are you pursuing, or? I
mean, I think, like, to the extent that that's attractive to anybody, sure. I'm genuinely very excited to have like unlimited time right now to devote to poker and to improving, because it's been like this side project for me for so long, that I'm just excited to see how good I can actually be now that I can study and work at it all the time. So, I mean, I have just sort of a lot, a lot of room for improvement. And I want to be as good as I can be. That's about it. That's my main ambition. Playing big cash games, playing the biggest cash games. I'm going to give this tournament thing a try for a couple of months and see how I like it, see if I think there's any value in continuing to do it. Yeah, that's about it.
So I guess it's just about getting as good as you can and sort of what comes along with that. Like, I guess when you become really good at something, like you sort of naturally gain success, admirers, or people start recognizing you for that, or people are talking about you. So the word kind of gets around about you just naturally when every time you're playing those stakes or you're good. So I guess you're not gonna, because a lot of people go out of their way. They start blogging or they'll I don't know how people do it these days. I don't pay much attention, but like there are certainly some people who actively seek it out. They're on Twitch, or they're doing this, or they're doing that, or they're trying to get a sponsorship deal. Like, is that something that you're pursuing or you're open to getting if you could get? Because I think you wrote about this in your article, is that there are sponsorship opportunities for women that just come, and that's just this sort of how things are. So is that something that you're thinking about getting or open to, or would be? Like, because I'm sure someone could watch this and they'd be interested in.
Give me money, sure, I'll take it. But I'm not like doing anything to pursue things like that. My focus is definitely on learning to play as well as I can, becoming the best poker player I can. If there are opportunities that come along with that, that's great. But I consider them sort of ancillary to what I really want to do, which is be a very good poker player. And I'm not seeking out ways to sort of like skip over that learning to be a poker player and becoming a good poker player part, to the sponsorship, any of those other opportunities. That seems like it should be not a consideration for somebody in my position. I think that I lost you. I'm going to try hanging up and logging back in.
I think I'm back. Oh, I might be back. All right, guys. I think I got disconnected here. It froze up. I'm back. Who's back? All right, we're back. Let me try to get Cate back in here. And sorry for the technical difficulties, Poppy. Let's see. Let me tell her to come back on Twitter if she's out there. Bounce. These errors, guys. These hotel internet sometimes, man. It's like the trap. Chirac comes over here to Germany and takes over the internet connection. Let's see. All right, let's get some chats. Tim F, what's up, Tim? I'm back. JMD, Papa Salta. Let's see. AF Wesco says, oh, Cate's back. Cate, what's up? Are you back?
Yes.
Okay, my internet, I'm in my Radisson internet. It went out and I had to reconnect. So
okay.
Now we're back. Were you left by yourself for a little bit and just sort of looking at the screen?
I just stared awkwardly at the screen for a while and then realized you were gone. And yeah.
That becomes sad. Let's make sure it's working fine. Can you say something so we can see if it goes back?
Something. Working?
Oh,
I think there's like a little bit of a lag.
Yeah, let me close it out, reconnect back, and then we'll get back to it. Hold on a second.
Should I stay here?
All right, boom. Now it's working fine. I gotta ban Hassan. He's tilting me too hard. He's tilting me too hard, man. I gotta ban him. Sorry, Hassan. I gotta get you out of here, man. Kim Jong Joey struck down. All right, so where were we at in the conversation here before I started freaking out about the internet?
Talking about myself, basically.
Oh, that's the point. That's the point of the podcast. That's why we have you on, because you get to tell people more about yourself. Because I know a lot of people were interested. They're like, "Who's this girl?" You know, like where, like they just didn't know anything about you. So I thought this would be a great opportunity to sort of get. Like I knew we'd have a discussion about the sexism thing, but I don't really know much about it, so I can't necessarily. I'm not like going to be the best conversationalist when it comes to talking about sexism in poker, because I think it's very obviously there, and the only thing we can do is just sort of raise awareness and tell people, hey, don't be an asshole, don't treat women like this at the poker table. And I feel like I do that pretty good job of that during my podcast, saying that specific thing. So. But I thought it'd be a cool opportunity to learn more about you. After I read your article, I was like, "Oh, she sounds pretty cool." So
thanks. Yeah, I love the opportunity to talk about myself. So this is ideal. Let's not talk about sexism. Let's just focus right here.
Is that true? You love to talk about yourself?
Not really.
Not really?
No.
Do you think that you're always right about when you talk?
No, definitely not. Yeah. I mean, I try to sort of like proportion the intensity of my beliefs to the amount of thinking I've done about them. So I try not to take really strong positions where I don't have a good basis for thinking what I do. But I'm wrong about things all the time and always happy to be proven wrong about them. The last thing I want to do is have like an incorrect opinion about something and be resistant to having it be corrected, because I sort of would like my model of the world to line up with reality and not be a delusional person.
Do you, I guess, would you say that you're, like the term feminist is always thrown around these days. So would you say you're like a hardcore feminist, or is that not how you would describe yourself?
I would definitely describe myself as a feminist. I think that it's a fraught term because it means very different things to different people, and some people react very strongly to it. But in the sense, I view feminism as women having an equal right as men to determine the course of their lives and do what makes them happy, which seems like a very uncontroversial position, and I think is probably something that most people agree with.
No, the reason I asked you the question before was I've only really met one person who was like, I'm a feminist, I'm this. And when I first met her, it was actually one of Jen Shahad's friends. Jen Shahad's going to be on the podcast again on Monday. I'm excited to have her on again. But she introduced me to her friend out in Los Angeles. And the first thing she said was, I'm right 95% of the time. I'm like, this girl's awesome. I'm in. Like, that was one of the best. It wasn't a line, but maybe it was a line. That's whatever. But that was one of the coolest things I ever heard anybody say to me. Yeah. I was like, oh, okay. But then I had the impression that all feminists thought they were always right all the time, and that might not be the best assumption to take with.
I think there's probably there's a big difference between 95% and 100%. Like if you added up all of your beliefs, most people probably think they're right 95% of the time. Thinking you're right 100% of the time is a very different thing. Yeah.
I don't know. There's probably some people who certainly think they're right 95% of the time too. So
yeah, I think anybody who thinks that they're right 100% of the time is probably delusional.
Yeah, I think those people are also typically the fun players you find at the casino as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's a large proportion of the population, actually.
Some people in the chat said something in regards to the stance, but I honestly, it's like talking Japanese, so I can't quite. If you want to get in touch with Cate on Twitter, you'd be more happy to reach out to Cate. Guys, we'll take some questions in the Obama. What's up? President Obama's in the chat. Welcome back, Obama. We missed you, puppy. My boy Obama, man. What's up, Obama? All right, we'll take some comments. If you have some, welcome back, Mr. President. If you have some comments or questions for Cate, go ahead, ask them now. I saw a law question there. I'm not going to ask the law question right now, guys. Not going to ask the law question. I guess you mentioned you had who are your good friends in poker? Like, who are the people you hang out with? When I met you, you were with. What were you even doing when I met you that day? Were you guys just like, what was happening at that table that night?
I was observing a game, which is something that I almost never do. But yeah, I was with Jason Mercier and John Deeb and Brian Hastings, who were playing this. They're actually playing a few different games, but the one that I was watching, I think when you came over, is Duck Flush, which is sort of like deuce to seven triple draw, but with where a flush and higher hand rankings trump the low. And they were playing for huge money, and just because it was interesting to watch, I sat and watched. I'm friends with Natasha Barbour, who was there. And yeah, it was sort of a weird experience for me, but really great.
I was actually thinking, I want to be the guy that's on, like, I want to have be friends with a girl poker player, or not be, whatever, like date one. And I want to be the guy watching behind her. I want to be the guy sitting there railing. I just want to see what that's like, because I always see these girls that are railing their boyfriends. Like, I want to see what it's like. I want to be sitting there, man. That's one of my new bucket list goals, guys. I want to be the guy railing someone at the poker table at the live 2-5 game.
Yeah, you don't see it very often, but I really appreciate it when you do. So much more than the opposite.
Have you ever found yourself on the rail behind somebody at the live poker table like that?
No, the time that I ran into you was possibly the only time I've ever railed a game.
Sure. Okay, sure. Okay.
Because in general, I think it's kind of like lame to sit and watch a poker game and not take part in it. But it was like such an unusual game, and I was kind of like, it was sort of surreal. So I was like, yeah, I'll sit and watch them play Duck Flush 600, 1200. That's something that I've never done before in my life and may never have another opportunity to do. So yeah. But I would never like sit and watch people play No Limit, because who cares? I'll watch on Twitch, or I'll watch TV, but it's just sort of really lame to pull up a chair behind somebody and watch.
Whoa! Shots at people that rail people at poker right there. Hey, you're gonna make them mad. They're looking for ammo on you, Cate. A lineman's crew is out there. I know they're looking for ammo.
I find it boring. Let's put it that way. I find it very boring.
Well, I wouldn't know. I've never done it, but I want to find out. So like I said, that's one of my new goals for the rest of the year.
So you think that if it were fascinating, you would have somehow done it at some point?
Well, no, I guess, because I haven't been around the live poker scene that much. And then the women that I have met that play live poker, I've never been around them when they're playing live poker.
Okay, fair.
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah. Who's like your crew? You have like a crew of girls, like, and then you said Natasha. Is she like in your little group? Everyone's got their own little poker crew.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that one of my better friends is Jess Dolly, who really was instrumental to me meeting basically everybody that I know at this point. So huge shout out to her. I was randomly, before I transitioned to playing full time, I was playing in a cash game at Borgata over like the winter holidays, and Jess was at my table. I'd never met her before, but we were both sort of like excited to be in a bigger cash game with another woman who was playing well. And so after when she was picking up to leave, she came over and like introduced herself. And she was like, I've been on the show, Poker Night in America, a couple times. Do you think that you would want to be on it? And I was like, yeah, that sounds amazing, random person that I just met right now. And so she like orchestrated that for me. And through that, I met a number of women, like Jamie Kerstetter, Natasha Barbour, Samantha Abernathy, like a number of women who are pretty involved in the community I met through that.
Two questions. One question just related. Do you think Jamie Kerstetter is funny?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, man. Okay. All right. Whatever. That's another story for another day. But back to that. So you met Jessica. Actually, I think I met her briefly at a charity event out in Las Vegas, but I don't know much about her. But she sounds like the definition of a hashtag ambassador, which people always throw around on Twitter. Ambassador. Look at Jessica. What an ambassador to the game. Stepping up, saying hello to the other female in the game. Have you played on Poker Night in America yet too, then? Have you gotten the game?
Yeah, we filmed it in April. I think it's going to air sometime in the fall. I don't know when exactly. But yeah, that was an amazing experience too. But like having that as sort of an entree into this world was amazing because I just got to meet a bunch of people right off the bat. And I think without Jessica, like getting me that opportunity or introducing me to people, it would have taken me a lot longer.
Way to be an ambassador. Way to be an ambassador of the game, Jess. Honestly, man. You're playing great, kid. Nice job. We got to get her on a podcast, talk more about this, man. That sounds like she plays cash games mainly too.
Yeah.
Just cash games.
Big games.
That's awesome. That's cool. Yeah, I feel like it's just so high. It's sort of hard as a cash game female player to get exposure. It's hard for any cash game player to get exposure because it's like, let's say you play like the Borgata, like you're the man at the Borgata, but like no one talks. Like it's not like there's a Borgata forum that millions of people are going on and like, Crazy Dave is up 700K in the 5100 mixed 2-7-55 game. Like there, no one talks about that. So sort of like it's like you're pretty unknown. There's no glory really in live poker cash games and like tournaments.
There's definitely no glory in live cash games. I think that's probably a big reason why people play tournaments. But cash is so much fun. Yeah. I
can tell. Do you have like I guess you said your best poker friend is Jessica or is it Natasha?
I don't know. I've never thought about my best poker friend. Probably Jessica.
I was just making you power rankings list for your friends, but I guess we don't have to do that. Do you have like are there any other people? Are there any other poker players that you might talk strategy with? Any the tournament player guys or any other cash game guys that play a lot?
Definitely. Especially in the last like few months, I've started to develop like good networks, I think, of people that I can talk strategy with, which I really, really appreciate because it's such a huge part of advancing as a player. And so there are like people that I'm sort of infiltrated their groups, including sort of the regs at Maryland Live where I play. And then there are people that I run into less frequently, but I make more of an effort to stay in touch with.
Hold on. Doing some podcast GTO. I don't know if I like this light in my face. I look too, oh my God, I hate these on the road podcasts, man. These are, all right, man, we're trying to fix the lighting situation here. Okay, so do you have a favorite poker player? Do you have someone that you love watching or you look up to or someone that you admire their ability or their anything, that sort of thing?
I mean, there are so many people for whom that's true. Yeah, there are so many people for whom that's true. I think that like Phelps comes to mind most readily because honestly, because she's a woman, because like we overlapped in law school at the same law school. And so she was just sort of like this god of poker that I looked up to long before I learned how to play. And I've come to really appreciate what an amazing player she is too. But there are so many really good poker players, honestly. There are obviously tons and tons of bad poker players, but there are lots of people who are much better than me. So I have no shortage of people to learn from.
No, I say your favorite, like a favorite poker player, like someone that you like. For my favorite poker player might be. I hate the lighting. I'm tilted. Phil Ivey might be your favorite poker player. Maybe Antonio Sfandiari, the magician himself. Maybe Tom Durdwan. You like?
It might be Dwan. I mean,
Tom
if I were
Dwan?
gonna pick somebody that like I just like to watch play, it'd probably be Dwan.
Tom Dwan. Okay, so I guess it sounds like your goals are keep working at your game. How do you do that? You watch videos, you read books. Like, how can a live poker player really get better at their poker game?
I think that videos and books are big. I think forums can be useful if you already have a decently good idea of what information is helpful and what isn't. They're like less helpful if you're starting from scratch and don't have a good way of sorting good information from bad. I think the single most important thing you can do is befriend people who are better than you at poker and take their advice when they're willing to give it seriously and not react defensively, because it seems like ego is a huge thing that prevents people from improving. And like there's no substitute for on point advice that's tied to a particular situation that you've been in and like a thinking process that you can recreate. So if you can find people who are better than you that are willing to do that for you, be as open to it as humanly possible and like readily take their advice and admit your mistakes.
I think people being defensive is not just in poker, but it's in everything. I mean, you see a lot of people that are just massively defensive about everything, and it's one of the most unattractive qualities I've ever encountered in my life.
Yeah,
I would say that. Yeah,
it's kind of amazing to me how many people are otherwise dedicated to improving and like really put time in, but are so reluctant to internally admit that they make mistakes that they find ways to sort of justify making the same mistakes over and over and don't improve at the rate that they could because of it.
I think that just takes time. I think I was like that when I was playing for the first couple of years. I was still having success, but I probably was exactly that way, and I just kept making the same mistakes over and over and over again. And sometimes people would say things to me, and you're like, yeah, whatever. Like,
right.
I know, or some shit like that. So that I think that's like the go-to saying for people that are sometimes defensive. They're like, I know. Yeah. It's like, okay. Like anytime someone starts dropping, yeah, I know, or yeah, I'm just like, I'm not talking anymore. Like I'll just agree with what you say.
Right. Yeah, that's a really good way to get a useful source of information to stop giving it to you. Be defensive about
it. James Puppy, he says, has Cate ever dated a poker player, and how does she feel about mixing the two worlds?
I have never dated a poker player, and it's something that I've thought about. I would be like pretty reluctant to date a poker player, for the reason that like all things in poker, it's more complicated as a woman. I think that when a female player dates a male player, particularly one who is better than her, that tends to be like a thing that follows her around for the rest of her career, honestly, in the sense that, you know, if she does well, if she accomplishes something, there are always people who are eager to say like, oh, well, she got lessons from this guy that she was sleeping with, or she was getting staked by this dude that she was dating. And it's sort of like you kind of have like an asterisk next to every accomplishment for the rest of your career, at least in some people's minds. And it doesn't matter whether it's justified or not. It's kind of just the way that men in poker tend to talk about women in poker. So I think for that reason, I would be super hesitant to date a poker player, because I just like really want to make sure there's no doubt about who's responsible for any successes I might have.
So why does that matter so much? Like, why, like, what does it matter if people think that that's the case? What does it matter if people think that, oh, she only got, like, it seems like, because you said something about that earlier as well too. So, and I know some women don't care about that, but it seems like you really do care about that.
I mean, I do care about it both from a personal perspective and from a perspective of like, I think it's really problematic that that sort of accusation is leveled at basically almost all female poker players who date male poker players. And it's sort of a way of like denigrating women's accomplishments without thinking about the fact that, like, yes, men may not have exactly the same type of situation, but they get all sorts of help from other men. They get staked, they get lessons. It's like this particular way that women are attacked. And on the off chance that I become successful in poker based on my merits as a player, I just don't want to be another woman against whom that kind of accusation can be levied. Also, like, on a personal level, I just want to feel like a sense of ownership of my accomplishments and pride. And if a lot of people doubt the way that you've come by your accomplishments, it takes something away from it.
So you're big into being respected by your peers. It sounds like you that's one thing, because some people don't care about respect. I mean, they just want to make money. So I think, I mean, I like that camp. I like that approach to things because, yeah, I think that's a great approach to take. But you find a lot of people in poker they're just all about the money. Like, they don't care. They'll do whatever it takes to gain an edge. They'll do whatever it takes to make the most money that they think they can make the most money. So I feel like that's not a common thing you hear people say.
I've never honestly thought about it. But I'm coming from a background where I was making, honestly, a lot more money than I could ever hope to make in poker. And I gave that up because money was not bringing me enough happiness. I want to be able to live my life the way that I want to live my life and not have to make compromises about it. And I'm not willing to just do anything for money. And so I'm not going to be seeking out every conceivable edge that way.
If you care about only money in poker, there's a lot of ways guys, to get yourself an edge in different situations. So, and I think you see that a lot in poker right now too.
Yeah.
Do you ever worry about any sort of cheating happening in your games? That's something you ever have to worry about? Are you always thinking about, 'cause the higher the stakes get, the more collusion, the more people are sharing action, the more people are playing on they're playing in different live poker player bodies, and there's multi-body going on in live poker. Maybe that's not actually happening, but maybe that's just in the...
Yeah, that's one thing you don't have to worry about. I mean, I worry about it some. I worried about it more when I was in Vegas, when I was playing in like big games and didn't know a lot of people. I think you have to be careful and be on the lookout. Obviously, if people are really good at colluding, it's going to be difficult to see that they're doing it. So that's always a risk. But I think that, paying attention to who knows who can be really helpful. There were definitely things that I saw in Vegas where I felt like people were soft playing each other, or there was some questionable play going on, and I just, left those games. And I heard, that's another reason that having friends in the community is really helpful, because there were several occasions on which I got tips like, don't go play X game at Y casino because there's been a lot of collusion in that game lately. And if you have people who are who know the games and are looking out for you, that's a huge thing.
One thing I like doing in that situation is I would say at the table, like, what are you guys on a team? You guys team players? Like, and say it in a joking way. You're smiling. Anytime you say something and smile, like, you can say anything you want. You're like, you're not very good at poker. But like, say it in like a funny way, not like a not like demeaning way, but you're saying like a joking way with like one of your friends. So at the table, if I see something like that, what are you guys on a team? You like, what do you got? You fucking, this is like a baseball. Hey, what's going to happen here, guys? And you see how they react. And anytime I see that, that's what I say. I'm saying team. When you guys like paying you, like, who do you got a piece of everyone at the table? Like, just say comments like that, and then sometimes you can get some interesting reactions out of people saying things like that.
Rattled? What happens?
What'd you say?
They get rattled by it. What happens?
Well, usually I say it to the nits as well too, but it's just it's funny. It's fun to hear what some people say back, because I'm curious to actually catch some sort of, because I haven't played enough games to actually like feel like I really thought someone was doing it, but people are funny. They're like, what are you talking about, dude? They're not a team. Sometimes they're just really, a good way to get stabbed in the parking lot. I guess that could happen too. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. If I think someone's on a colluding at the table, I might jokingly say something about it. Maybe I got to think about this more. I got to get in the lab. I've been thinking about live poker, GTO, and strategy, and yeah. If you had to give one person some live poker advice, what would you give them?
Somebody who is new to the game?
No, someone who's like struggling to beat 2-5.
Somebody who is struggling to beat 2-5, I'd say stop bluffing. 2-5 is just, when I play 2-5, I basically never bluff, because there's no point. Just bet everything for value, bet thin value. Yeah, nobody's ever folding middle pair, so there's no point in bluffing. You only get to like balance when you get to 5-10 and above, I think.
To be fair, if you're not beating 2-5 live, it seems hard not to beat 2-5 live. But I can understand the struggle, but it seems like it'd be challenging not to beat 2-5 live. I think it's harder to not win the game than it'd be to win the game.
I mean, I genuinely think that, like, if you just never bluff and value bet 100% of the time, you can beat 2-5, and you can make all sorts of mistakes as long as that's your basic strategy, and you'll still be a winning player.
Well, people out there, maybe try that advice. Let me know how it works. Keep me updated.
I'm wrong about it.
Aaron Sanders actually made a good comment. He said, if you got married to Jungle Man, you know who Jungle Man is?
Yeah.
Your name would be Cates, which would be one of the great names.
That's a great reason to do it, right?
Well, at least Cates. Yeah, I think just for the name. Yeah, maybe not. You're right. It's a pretty good point. If you had to recommend two people to have on the podcast, I should get on. Who would you recommend?
Ooh, I'm trying to think of people that you have not had on, because like a lot of people that I would be interested in watching, I know you've already had. Like, I love listening to Jamie Kerstetter talk, but I know that you've had her on before.
You really think Jamie's funny? Honestly?
Honestly, I really genuinely do. And that's not like me looking out for another woman. I actually think that she's very funny.
Huh.
I take it that you disagree with that.
Well, what happened at the charity event, her and Jen were at the same seat. I was talking to Jen. I was like, I don't really think Jane, I don't think she's that funny. And she got really mad at this.
Jamie did, or Jen did?
No, Jamie got mad at me because I said I didn't think she was funny.
Yeah. No, I think that she's like pretty hilarious. She's one of the only poker players who I enjoy reading non-poker related stuff from.
I gotta do more research on this then, I think. Okay, so two people. Who else have I had on that you would like that you liked?
Maybe you're not funny? Because there are two like equally plausible explanations.
Huh.
There's a lot of people saying Jamie is funny, so just.
Well, yeah, I've certainly never thought I was. I mean, I wouldn't. If someone's like, "Can you describe yourself?" I would never say I'm funny. I probably wouldn't be one of the words I would use. So maybe I'm not funny. Maybe it's I just missed her.
I didn't mean to actually fill you with self-doubt. I thought that would be a snap rejection.
I know. I don't know. I've never thought I was funny. I don't even like. I've been reading some books on like comedy and stuff like that, but I don't necessarily. I haven't started putting some of those that advice into action though.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Okay, so other people I'd recommend, Jess Dolly. Gotta give her a shout out. She's great. You could not possibly go wrong with Sam Abernathy, and I'm sure that you would get a billion viewers because she's like the most adored person in the world. I've never met a person who doesn't like her. Yeah, I would. There's a few people who are also have their own podcast, so I won't recommend them.
Or are they? No, it's fine. We like other podcast people. Some of my better poker friends that do other podcasts. Who would that be?
Andrew Brokos, I like.
Mm-hmm.
From Thinking Poker. I'm looking up Andrew Barber. I'm gonna give him a shout out. He won the horse event this summer, the horse championship, and I think is a really fascinating person with some very interesting views outside of poker as well.
Actually, I never heard of the last guy you said.
Yeah, Andrew Barber.
Gotta look him up, man. All right, I'm think
he's a bracelet winner now, so.
Yo, who doesn't got a bracelet these days? Honestly, if you don't got a bracelet and you're a tournament player, if you're playing tournaments for the past 4 to 5 years, you don't got a bracelet.
You're nobody.
Yeah, like, who are you, man? Come on, honestly, like that's. Yeah. Do you know do you know a girl named Lexi Gavin?
I don't think so, actually.
Okay, I met her at the same charity event. This charity event was awesome, by the way. I met a lot of people there, but I met her. She plays cash games in New York City and Borgata, I believe, and she plays, I guess, pretty similar stakes you play. I'm gonna have her on a podcast sometime soon. I didn't know if you knew her too as well.
No, I'm a little bit surprised that I've never run into her because there aren't that many women who play big cash, but that's great. Lexi, what was her last name?
Gavin, yeah.
Okay. I'll check her out on Twitter.
I think her Twitter name is, actually, I don't know what her Twitter name is, actually. Chip Trick 1111, maybe, something like that. I'm not sure. I got to look it up. Let's see. I'm looking at my list here. I have a couple of things. So you're playing Foxwoods now? You're going to play the tournament at Foxwoods or just the cash games?
I'm going to be playing the tournaments. Yeah.
Good luck. Hey, keep me updated on your current thinking about tournament poker, because I feel like unless you do really well to begin with, you're not going to be.
Yeah, I mean, I played a ton of events this summer, and generally hated myself for it. But I did have one good run in an event, and that was fun. And I'm just going to give it a little bit more time, I think, before I write off the whole thing. Are
you going to any of the international ones? There's EPT Barcelona coming up. I think there's I don't fucking know.
Barcelona. I mean, there are some events that I'm looking at. I would love to go to some of them, and probably will end up going to some. Yeah. At least if I'm still on the tournament grind. That's like a reason to be on the tournament grind, honestly.
All right. So I said this earlier for a couple of questions, but then I sort of went on another tangent and then 10 other questions that I didn't pay attention to got asked. So let's take some more questions. Joe Force says, Cate seems like a pretty smart. Cate seems. All right, you didn't use the sentence correctly, Daniel. Come on, dude. Fucking noob. He said, Cate seems pretty smart and a cool girl, a bit overly focused on the feminist part. Not sure if she's serious. I think he's trolling, but I'm not really sure. Joey, you should get Bonnie Rotten on. I'd love to have Bonnie Rotten on. You know who Bonnie Rotten is?
No, I don't.
Oh, okay. She's a porn star.
Okay, I would have guessed based on the name. Oh, actually, I think I know who she is. She's on Suicide Girls?
Well, tell us more. What is a suicide? I don't know what that means.
Never mind. What? No, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Huh. Was that the kind of, is that the, well, I mean, normally a normal question I might ask one of my guests is what kind of porn do they like, but I'm trying to not ask that question for this podcast. You know, I got the people out there waiting to just on me. So that wouldn't be, we're not even gonna ask that question.
I think I won't answer that for the reason that it would be all I would hear about for the next 6 months from anybody who viewed this.
Why? No, I asked that question to everybody. We get all kind of fun answers.
Yeah, but did you ask to Jamie Kerstetter?
I'm pretty sure I did. Yeah, of course I did. Why wouldn't I ask you to Jamie Kerstetter? I think I would offend her if I didn't ask her that question. Jen Shahad, I know what kind of porn she likes, and I'm excited to get into it. We're gonna do a deep dive into it on Monday, man. That's I think you can really learn a lot about a person if you ask.
I think that that's right. And I'm going to keep the book closed on that one.
Well, that tells me a little bit about what I need.
Let's put it that way.
Well, that's a tell though, because what happens is, if say someone like, you know, oh, I'm just into girl, or I'm into traditional, I'm into the casting, you know, where the guy's at the camera on the couch and the girl's on the couch. Like, if someone likes that, that's boring. So they're going to be like, yeah, I like that stuff. When someone says, I'd rather not talk about it, normally that means they're into like the ones in Russia and like the dungeons and the 10 dudes. You know, it's it's a whole other side of. That's okay. That's all right, man. It's all right. We'll talk about that. Maybe to the next podcast we can get into that question, okay? Joy, where did you get the mala? I don't know what a mala is. You know what a mala is? An M-A-L-A.
I have no idea what that is.
Is that the necklace? Is that these cool pants I have on right here? I found recently the other day. These are my music festival pants. Do you go to any music festivals at all, Cate?
I've not gotten into that scene yet, but I'm like starting to. I didn't go to like EDM.
Who?
What?
What'd you say? You didn't go to EDM? You mean EDC?
Sorry, EDC. Obviously. But I am going to my first show with a group of people and doing the full experience next month. So I'm excited for that.
What show are you going to?
I don't even know. There's like a club in DC for that. Yeah. So I'm like completely not into that world yet, but I'm definitely interested in trying it. So ask me again in a month.
So you're trying to get into it?
I'm just like, I mean, I know a lot of people who are really into it and who have been encouraging me to try it out. So I'm going to give it a shot. And
a popular segment we sometimes do is a dance off. Do you have a go-to dance move? Like what's your move like when you're dancing? Are you like let me better scoot the chair back. Hold on a second. Let me put the mouse down. So I know, like, are you like the drop it low type, or you're like, are you like what are you like the standstill type like this? Like what's your dancing style? What's your move?
I need to be really under the influence of something to try to dance. I am really tall, as you may or may not remember, and also like incredibly awkward physically. So me dancing is not something that most people want to see, except for amusement value, which I will definitely indulge, but I need to be in a different state of mind for it.
So your dancing style is like this. You're just like, yeah, okay, woo, yeah. Is that?
I dance enthusiastically, just very poorly. Yeah.
Can you give us an example of what that might mean?
No. I do need to be pretty stoned before I will dance. So.
Okay, interesting. How tall are you? I saw you sitting down. I didn't know that you were. How tall?
5'10".
5'10". Yeah. Man, it's so hard to meet girls that are above 6 foot. You know, it's.
Throw on some heels and I'm there.
TGG. I guess we were gonna say, do you have any you don't have any rage stories, right? I guess if you've never been to any music festivals, you probably.
No.
Okay. Well, I look forward to hearing about we didn't get any fucking questions from the chat, guys. You guys are struggling today. I mean, there have been the most ridiculous questions and comments being said throughout the chat. I banned more people in this chat than I've had to ban in the past couple chats because we got some new people watching the live stream. Obviously, maybe have some fan of Cate Halls out there. And you know what? I'm trying to keep the chat like relatively moderated a little bit. I don't want to turn into a Twitch chat where it's like, you know. Drum Faux Funk says, Cate, will you smoke a joint with me at Foxwoods? He asked that 5 times, so I'm gonna relay the question to you for him.
Probably not, but ask me after I bust, and then maybe. No, I'm in the habit of not smoking weed in the middle of tournaments. Also, I should throw in. Weed is totally legal in Washington, D.C. I'm obliged as a still barred member of the DC bar to mention that.
Oh, so it's not against terms of service in that state?
It's totally legal, yeah.
Good.
As it probably is not in Connecticut.
Listen, Cate, around here, we are not into breaking terms of service, no matter if it's set by a poker site, if it's set by the government, if it's set by anything. We don't break terms of service, and I'm happy to see that you also oblige with not breaking terms of service too.
Of service. Yep.
What kind of drugs has she tried? Jeez. I mean, it's not a terrible question, but
yeah.
Do you have a Jungle Man impression?
No, I don't. Yeah. Oddly, I can like picture him, but I can't imagine any of his mannerisms. Does he have like really distinctive ones?
I guess so. Yeah, you got to watch some YouTube clips of him to really see. Do you have a Vanessa Selbst impression?
No. She's like totally undistinctive in terms of her mannerisms. I'm not gonna have any good impressions. It's not my forte. Yeah.
Are you shy? Are you shy about some things?
Yeah, I'm actually pretty shy and introverted, and can force myself to not be, but I definitely fall on the shy side of the spectrum in real life.
Wow, interesting.
I've had to like learn through a lifetime to pry myself out of that shell, but it does not come naturally at all to me.
A couple people want to ask about the tattoo. They want to know about the tattoo. Can you tell us more about your?
This is a really nerdy tattoo. This is from the show Battlestar Galactica. One of the characters has this tattoo, and I thought it was a really cool tattoo, so I got it. But I have like many tattoos, and I always tell people that with each successive tattoo, the threshold of personal interest and investment goes down, because like the first tattoo that you get generally tends to be really meaningful, and then by the time you're on like your sixth, you're just like, whatever, it's just another tattoo. So I'm like, yeah, I like the way that this looks. I'll just copy the tattoo from Starbuck from Battlestar Galactica.
What are the other tattoos that you have?
I have a lot of literary tattoos. I have a Vonnegut tattoo on my hip. I have a Pynchon tattoo on my ribs. I have, what else? Oh, okay, this one is even nerdier. This is one that I just got in Vegas. This is like going to lose your audience, so I'm sorry. But I just got this, which is a tattoo of Schrodinger's cat. And so there's this app that you can use on your phone that, God, there's no way to explain this quickly enough. There's an app that like randomizes your decisions, and Schrodinger's cat is a famous thought experiment in quantum physics where the cat is either alive or dead, at least according to one interpretation, but you don't know until you observe it. And so I decided to get a tattoo of Schrodinger's cat, and let the app pick whether I would get a live cat or a dead cat. And I brought both stencils to the tattoo shop with me, and just plugged it into the app there, and there was like a 50% chance of getting either one. I ended up with a dead cat, and it was really odd to explain to the tattoo artist that I was getting a tattoo of a dead cat and why. But yeah, if anybody wants to talk about that or wants an actual explanation, I'm happy to provide it, but probably not something that viewers of the podcast are super interested in.
Well, believe me, I know a couple of my viewers specifically are getting really, they got worked up right there. Like, what's her Twitter name? I'm finding her on Twitter right now when you said that. So you definitely, I'm sure some people out there were like, yeah, that's it. I was waiting for something.
Yeah.
That's the thing I was waiting for. That's the thing. TY TV, y'all boss, man. You're asking all the questions you missed out in the beginning of the podcast, Poppy. You want to find out the answer to the questions, you got to rewind the podcast to the beginning. watch from the beginning. You'll get some answers to the questions that you're asking. All right. Well, I guess people are going to give you the answers too. Jesus Christ. All right, man. All right, Cate, do you have any questions you potentially would like to ask me? Some people sometimes have some questions they give me. So if you have any questions for me, I'll answer them as honestly as I can, provided I don't break terms of service.
Okay, I'm going to ask you one question, and then I'm going to peace out because I got to get to this tournament.
Perfect.
What advice would you give to somebody who is interested in learning PLO from scratch?
Oh, that's a really great question. Okay, so there are 2 books out there. There's one book that's done by 2+2. You'd have to go to the 2+2 site. It's basically their introduction for PLO. I guess for if you're transitioning, that's a really good resource as well. There's also a book called Transitioning to PLO from No Limit. That's more for an online perspective. The 2+2 book is more from a live PLO perspective. So I think that's a good resource if you're going the strictly book wise. I think just playing, like honestly, playing play money on PokerStars and just seeing hands and getting the situations and just sort of understanding like what you have and what spots and what someone has and what spots. And I think that, I mean, as ridiculous as it sounds, this is going to sound ridiculous. I did a play money prop bet where I tried to run 3,000 play chips up to 20 million in 24 hours, and I bet $18,000 on it. So, and of course I failed, but I got this. I came down to the end, but I failed. But I got a good chance to see exactly how these play money games online played. I'm thinking like, oh, it's going to be easy, but these people take this seriously.
Yeah.
So what you can actually do is unless you want to play the super low stakes on some of the untracked American sites, then I think the best, that's a great resource just to make yourself more familiar with what you have. So getting better at identifying what you have in what situations. All right, I have this, I got a backdoor draw. Seeing what your opponents go to showdown with, you can sometimes learn bet sizing in that situation, but it's pretty hard because there's still people that are, they're not taking it super seriously. But I think just playing some hands, just getting some experience, writing down, I'm going to get into my whole entire approach to how I get better at poker and everything I do in general. But just like writing things down, like keeping track of what you think you're good at, what you think you're bad at. This is too long of an answer. A book, 2+2 book, PLO, done.
Yeah.
That'll be the best resource. But obviously I think, there's a lot of different ways to get better at it. And I think the people who are good at learning new things, there's much more effective ways of learning. And yeah.
Totally.
That's all I got to say about that. So,
well,
all right.
Thank you for having me on. I really appreciate the opportunity.
I'm excited to see how your tournament poker goes. I'm excited to see how your rise up the live No Limit Cash ranks. I'll be following you on live cashgamerankings.com, of course, and see how you're doing there. And I'm anxious to hear how your first EDM experience in Washington, D.C. goes, getting the full experience.
Excellent.
All right, you want to follow Cate on Twitter? It's at Cate Hall, correct?
Yes, exactly. Cate with a C.
Cate with a C. Bam. All right, that's it, guys. Be back tomorrow with Matt Salzberg. Monday with Jen Jihad. Wednesday with something else. Friday with something else. That's it. Peace out. Much love. Adios. Con la moza, papi.